Welcome to another exciting Flick and the Bozman show where we're talking some Mets and Yankees, some Subway Series, and it was quite a doubleheader yesterday. How's it going there, Dave?
You gotta believe, or yeah, I think it's yeah, gotta believe.
You gotta believe. You gotta believe.
I did
That's
not.
why you went to bed with them losing in both games somehow? I don't know how that happened.
I think I texted you about 2 innings into the doubleheader saying the Mets could easily be looking at 13-21 at the end of the weekend, meaning 5 game sweep by the Yankees.
And then somehow they pulled them both out and we're both excited.
Yeah, well, they're on their way to the playoffs now, right?
That's what sports does to people, and it certainly does it to us.
Well,
we
mostly just the Mets, I think.
oh no, it is not just the Mets, but
Well, you
the
get the Jets too.
the Mets are a big part of it. And which game do you want to talk about, if either, or do you want to look forward?
Well, I think neither one. Big picture, the question you have to ask yourself is what's happening here, right? So they've won 3 games in a row. What happened before that? They had lost a couple games to the Marlins, and you think what they've got to beat the Marlins. The Marlins are not that good, and B, they're somehow still the team that's holding the last playoff spot in the National League. So you got to beat the Marlins. Then in between, you get this crazy awful, shooting and all the games being suspended and not suspended, but what's the word I'm looking for, Phil?
Well, they walked off, canceled, postponed for now,
Right, right. So,
and they may not be made up.
well, I think well, who knows, right? For some of them, but but there was for the Mets in particular, there was an emotional moment when Dom Smith was interviewed a couple times over the weekend talking about what it's like to be him, what it's like to be a black man in a white world. And not trying to get overly political here, people may be on one side or the other, but what you see for the Mets over the last 3 games is a different kind of team. And I tried to find the statistics. I don't believe they had a single come from behind win this year.
Not a ninth inning one. I know that much.
And now they have two. And so the thing that I hope this could mean for the Mets as a team before, and again, ignoring what this could mean to the country or whatever, which is obviously the more important thing, is somewhat similar, perhaps somewhat analogous to what happened in 2015 when Wilmer Flores was traded or not traded.
Or not traded, right?
And they caught lightning in a bottle, and they suddenly became this great team. So is that possible? I don't know. I look at this team and they are 20th in the league in runs scored per game, but somehow they're third in the league in OPS.
Yeah, they were at the beginning of the week. They were first in average.
And I don't have that information, but I do know, and so they can hit. They have not hit. They've been terrible with runners in scoring position. Um, and overall, they're also 20th in the league, meaning the majors, obviously, in ERA. And that's going to be the problem, right? Because they keep trotting out guys on the mound like Gesellman, who's going to start today with a 7.7 ERA.
Well,
Or
well, that you have no idea
ERA.
who's pitching a day or two later. And I mean, what's the rotation? They don't have a rotation. They have maybe the best pitcher in baseball, and then some other guys who could pitch the first couple innings if they need to.
Yeah. And that's where I got frustrated early yesterday because I had no hope that Waka was going to turn things around or that the Mets wouldn't pull him and suddenly find themselves with an insurmountable lead to overcome. And between Gesellman, Waka, and Porcello, those three guys have. Porcello's got the best ERA of the three of them at 6.43.
All right.
Pulled Max from their rotation with a 9 ERA,
Yeah.
and he hasn't pitched since.
when you're looking at your pitching staff and going, "Oh, phew, I'm so glad Peterson's back,"
Right.
y- there's something wrong there.
And Lugo, who I still firmly believe is a better pitcher as a relief pitcher, uh, pitched very well in his 3 inning stint as his first time back on the mound as a starter earlier this week. Um, can he be stretched out to pitch 5 6 innings? I certainly hope so. Will he be nearly as effective? He. I think it's fair to say he won't be as effective a starter as he was a reliever, but he will probably also be the Mets' second best starter.
Yeah, and
That's not saying much, but
no, and they blow so many games that are Degrom games. They're not fully blowing them this year, but they blow his wins. Not that I care that much about who gets credit for the win. I
yeah,
mean,
so
Degrom was
you're
clearly the
5-1.
best pitcher the other day. Yeah, um, but I'm just, you have to think, well, what's the long term goal here? And if they stumble into the playoffs and they get in one of these 3 or 5 game series and they even win DeGrom, all of DeGrom starts, which is unlikely, they'll probably blow one of them. And how far can I see them getting? I'll be rooting, but it's tough without more pitching to see them getting a lot further.
And that gets to the bullpen, right? So let's say hypothetically for a second that between Degrom, Lugo, uh, Peterson, and then they have a couple of openers like Gesellman and Waka and or Porcello that give you 2 to 4 innings, and then the bullpen comes in. Well, what about the bullpen? You got Diaz.
You've depleted it to get those starters.
Yes, and that's been tough. But they do have some decent arms who have surprised this year. I have to give credit where credit is due. Brad Brock being brought back, that's a lot of B's, uh, was a good move. He was bad the first half of last year. He pitched decently for the Mets. And in 6 innings so far this year, he's pitched well. He hasn't been healthy, but now he's back and he's pitching well. Uh, Chasen Shreve, the Mets picked up, I think, off of free agency or off of waivers, and he's pitched well in 13 innings. He got 2.77 ERA. Drew Smith, decent ERA in 6 innings. Jared Hughes, decent ERA in 11 innings. They've got some guys who have given small doses of decent performance. Diaz, hugely better than he was last year, bigly better. Um, what was he, a 5.5 ERA or something last year, right? He's got a 2.25 ERA this year. Here's the thing that's concerning: 12 innings pitched, 10 hits, 7 walks,
Okay, that math doesn't work.
and 28 strikeouts.
If if for some reason, if for on some teams you had some awesome defensive team, maybe you could survive that. But there are guys on base every inning, and the Mets don't have a great defensive team. They probably have a below average defensive team.
Yeah, no, they do. But just think about that for one more second. He's gotten 36 outs this year, 28 by strikeout.
Yeah, yeah, and
Him. I had the same thing with Degrom. To be honest with you, at some point you got to put the ball in play and let people pitch to contact and try to induce weak contact. This is how they used to do it in the old days. Not to sound too old here. Familia has the same problem, only worse. 11 hits and 11 walks in 13.1 innings.
that doesn't work.
And
It,
Betances is not quite as bad, only 6 walks in 10 innings. But
and if you go with these 2 inning starters, oh, we went with an opener. Oh, so Waka gave us 2 innings. If you bring those relievers in your mind, you could say, well, they only each have to pitch an inning. It's not that difficult. Yeah, but one of them is going to come in out of the bullpen and suck.
yep, and that's been the thing. And then you had the other night in Degrom start where Diaz has to come in and clean up the mess in the eighth. and hope that he can do it. He didn't. He didn't do it completely. And then fortunately he held up. I guess it the eighth. Yeah, I guess it was the eighth, right? It wasn't one of the 7 inning games. Uh,
No.
this is crazy. Um, and then Justin Wilson too. 7 point. Those are the guys. 7.27 ERA for Wilson. Those four guys are the guys that the Mets have counted on the most in terms of most appearances and most innings out of the bullpen, and they've been bad. Diaz has skated in and out of trouble because he struck out everybody and been able to limit the damage. But that's a
But
lot of people on base.
it, if you're bringing all those guys into the same game, one of them's probably going to be bad.
Yeah,
One of them's going to have control problems. One of them's going to get hurt. One of them's going, it, one might be okay for a couple innings, but it's just so hard to rely on all of them in every game that some of the starters have to give you some length.
yeah, and that not we talked about it after Degrom's last start. He just needs to they pulled him after 91 or 92 pitches. You need to get him to 110 to 120 pitches. He's good enough if he's healthy. I know that's been an if this year so far, but he seems like he's pitching healthy. He's got a 1.8 ERA. You need to stretch him out. You need to get 7, 8, 9 innings out of him. In his career, he's got 2 complete games. 2. That's ridiculous for a guy as talented as he is. You need to stretch him out. And more than that, you look at who you're going to pitch, who you're going to bring in. If he's one of the best pitchers in baseball, he's clearly the best pitcher on the game, on the team. You're by definition bringing in somebody who is not as good. Take a page from Jack Morris and pitch at 85-90% until you need to, and then
He's been doing some things this year where he'll rely on two pitches for the first two innings and then a different type pitch in innings 3 and 4. And
yeah,
something along those lines to give you a little bit more length, I think, is the direction that DeGrom has to go.
yeah. I just think for the this year the Mets are 5-1 in his starts. The last 2 years, his Cy Young years, the Mets were 14 and 18 both years in his starts. 14 and
Yeah.
18, and over
It,
since 2016, since opening day 2016, I believe they're one game over 500 in his starts.
if I'm a team facing him and I'm the manager, I tell my first two or three guys, just foul off everything you can.
Yep.
Oh, and then get a hit, coach? No.
Yep.
Just keep fouling things off.
Yep.
Just
Get to the bullpen.
just get to the bullpen. And while the game was going on, we had some text or two going back and forth, and you're like, I bring DeGrom back for another inning.
For the
And
eighth.
I think I said I wouldn't have even had him pitch the inning he did. What was it, the seventh? I probably would have pulled him after 6 because I knew he couldn't, with the number of pitches he had thrown, I knew he couldn't go a complete game.
Yep.
And they were up 4-0, and it's Miami. How's Miami going to score 4 runs? But of course they did, and really should have scored more.
Yeah, they got the one cheap one off of DeGrom, off a pop fly double that just fell in when Nimmo got a bad start. And talk about bad defense. I mean, it's got to start there, right? You've got a right fielder playing center. You've got a first baseman playing left in Dom Smith. And Conforto's decent, maybe even slightly better than decent in right.
Yeah. I mean, Hamilton's in the lineup today, and that at least gives you another fielder, but then you have Hamilton in the lineup.
Yeah, yeah. Can they?
In the lineup today. McNeil's not in the lineup today, and I think that's a good thing. I just think he's not 100% right now, and
Yeah,
probably needs a day or two to regroup. He's a much better hitter than he's showing right now.
yeah,
And they put Alonso at DH today, which I'm fine with occasionally, and because Smith can field. But it when Rosario has to bat eighth and Ramos is batting sixth, then you're kind of like, ugh, is that really the best lineup we can put out there? And individually, none of them are that bad, but none of them are quite doing enough either. Who's having a career year for the Mets? Maybe Conforto average wise, but that's about it.
Offensively, yeah, Conforto. I've been saying for years, Conforto just needs to stay healthy. You go back to the his best year, full year or almost full year he had was I think 2016 when he had about a 930 something OPS, made the All Star team. He had 20 something home runs, and then he separated his shoulder and missed the last month and a half of the season. That's what he's capable of, I believe, when he's healthy. I think the rest of the time he's always been trying to play through something, and he ends up with something like an 8 something OPS. So far this year, knock on wood, he has been healthy, and his OPS is 966. So I don't think he's playing out of his head. I just think it's going to be tough for someone who plays as hard as he plays to stay 100% and not have a little nick or a bruise or something that makes him play at 90%. Um, and then he's that does slow him down.
Well, I think yesterday in the first game, the Mets tried to bring in at least one guy for defense in the seventh inning, get my innings right, and they had to move four guys to do it.
Right.
He's now playing third. He's now playing left, and moving from second to right field. And you're like, what are they doing?
The
Are they just putting people out there in random spots?
on the plus
But
side, the one guy who's having a year that you wouldn't have expected so far is Dom Smith.
yes,
He's been crushing it. Now
yes,
he will tell you, and I think it may make a little bit of sense that he got an operation before last season, I believe it was, to help him with his sleep apnea, and now he's well rested. You saw that last year, and you've seen it again this year. That I think that to me that makes sense. Like if you're tired, catching up to a 98-mile-an-hour fastball is a little harder than if you're not. And,
yeah.
and so I don't think he's
I would
a
think so.
230 hitter, that you can count on that. But it makes sense that he's not a 240 hitter that he was, before last season. I think you could count on him being a very good player. This good, that's hard to figure. I mean, he's got 78 at bats, he's got 11 doubles, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs in 25 games played, and his OPS is 1163.
So, without looking, where do you think he's batting today?
Uh, I would have him probably third.
He's seventh.
Of course. Okay.
Because you got to go lefty righty or something. I don't
Or
know.
something. Yeah, take your best guys, put them at the end of the lineup. That's managing 101.
Well, I think him and Ramos had a race from home to first to see who could bat sixth and who could bat seventh.
With Mike Scioscia's pregnant wife.
And coming fourth. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I butchered the joke, but you get the
No,
point.
you nailed the joke. That was exactly right.
Well, I was trying to. How many more guys in the race? Okay, yes. So we got there some, but it's certainly something to watch. It's I have no idea. The next three games. Well, as of last night, before I knew Gazelman was starting today, if there is a game today based on the weather, it was TBA for today and TBA for both games tomorrow as to who is pitching.
Yeah.
And that you got 5 games with the Yankees. You don't use DeGrom at all.
Uh,
Uh,
because
it's
coming out of those games that they had their little sit in. I don't mean to call it little. They had their sit in their protest. Uh, they could have reset the rotation and started DeGrom in one of these games against the Yankees, and they
sure,
chose not to. They started him against the Marlins.
yeah.
I don't know. Uh,
It, So someone's making these decisions. Maybe a new owner will make those decisions, and we may find out more about that in the next few days. Apparently, J Lo and A Rod are out of the running, but we'll see what happens there. New owners got to be better, right?
Well, yeah, I think they have to. Uh,
By default.
can't be worse. Can't get no worse, as Paul McCartney would tell you.
If you did a war for owner, it's got to be in the positives for anybody else except the Wilpons.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're there with the Johnsons and Dan Snyder and those guys. That in
So
all seriousness, these owners seem to mean well, and they say the right things, and they try to hire good people and so forth. But somehow everything they do just turns out not quite right. And it's baffling. And I would much rather see. I kind of suspect, and I have no basis of fact on this, but I kind of suspect A Rod would be similar. He had that tendency. This is my as close as I'm going to come to some sort of rationality for what I just said. A Rod as a player had a tendency for saying and doing things that sounded right, but also sounded and came across as totally insincere and ended up
yeah,
flopping.
yes,
I feel like
and
that's who
I
he is.
I maybe because I talk to you a lot, but I know what you're saying there. I understand where you're going, and I agree with you.
So I would rather door number two here with Steve Cohen, who I know nothing about.
That's the amazing things. The owners will have to get together and approve him because he may be he'll be the richest owner and he may be too meddling. And have you ever seen the picture of the guy? I don't even know what he looks or sounds like. So he's in this part of the process. He hasn't been meddling too much. I don't
If
think.
he's related to Gary at all,
I don't believe so.
he's got my vote. Gary's in the business.
Got your vote. Well, hopefully, if we keep doing the show for a while and the season continues, hopefully we'll have some Mets playoffs or playoff run to talk about. But that's where we are now on this last Saturday of August. Where the Mets stand and where we think they're going, I have no idea. If you listen back to our uh, show number 9, episode 9, where I had you make 60 predictions about the Mets. You're going to be right on a lot of them, and yeah, but there are still a ton of things you never saw coming, and that's what makes it interesting.
And they're one game behind the Marlins for the last playoff spot. And I still hold the Marlins are not good. But
No, the Marlins are not
the,
good.
the Mets are not good either. We talked about their problems, particularly with their pitching and their hitting with.
Name 5 Marlins players. I mean, that's going to be tough for anyone not playing in an all Marlin fantasy league.
Well, I may have a shot at that. I'm not going to try it, but I may have had a shot at that because the Mets played the Marlins like the last 10 days.
Yeah, that's the only reason. That's the only reason.
And
But we have other things to get to today on Flicking the Bozman. We got some trivia, which we're going to do next, and then we'll quickly do the next round of our best game 7 of the last 40 years or so. So bracket. But are you ready to take on some trivia there, Dave?
trivia time, trivia time.
Trivia time. Now, before we get to your 6 questions, I will give listeners the email address. If you're going to try these trivia questions, you can send your answers to flickboz@gmail.com, or you could even go to the Twitter site and do @flickboz and send your answers there. And one fan that's been listening who I wanted to give a shout out to. That's Sean, and he's a big Met fan and a big 49er fan. I haven't quite figured out how those two things go together, but he's also a aficionado of the mixed martial arts. So we appreciate Sean listening and contributing, and we'll see how he can do and how others can do on these 6 questions. So are you ready there, Bozman?
I am ready. And Mets and Niners. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, how do you get to that? A big? Did they both have big 86? No, I don't think so.
I would to know. Maybe they're thinking about some exciting teams from the '80s. Maybe.
And yeah, we'll get to the bottom of that eventually.
All right.
But
Hit me.
all right, we're starting. Your first question has to deal with someone we've mentioned already, and that's Jake DeGrom.
Okay.
And I was wondering, is anybody successful as a hitter against Jake DeGrom? And here's what I came up with: Who has the most career regular season home runs against Jacob DeGrom?
The most career regular season home runs against Jake DeGrom would have to be Freddie Freeman.
Freddie Freeman is perhaps the most successful hitter against DeGrom, and perhaps he's right for this answer. So, if you're playing along with Dave, Freddie Freeman is a very good guess. I was trying to read between the lines last week when you were giving me goods and very good guesses or horrible guesses. I'm telling you, this is a sufficiently good guess.
Well, you got to figure it's somebody in the division and somebody who's been there as long as Jake has been there, and that narrows it down pretty well. Now, is it possible there's some Mike Rizzo or somebody like that? Sure, but it's a lot less likely.
A lot less likely. I would say, I believe Freeman was tied for the most hits off him ever. So it's a reasonable guess.
All right.
All right. You ready for question two?
Yes, sir.
I like to bring out one of these on this date. So on this date in 1985, what Yankee passed Minnie Minoso for the most times being hit by a pitch in the American League?
That has to be the one and only Don Baylor.
Don Baylor.
May or may not have played for the Yankees in the '80s, uh, but he did get hit by pitches a lot, and I believe I do remember him on the Yankees. So I'm going to go with Don.
Don Baylor seems like a very solid guess. I don't know if we use solid for our guesses yet, but Don Baylor, you're
It's
going
an,
with.
it's an epic guess.
It's no, it's obviously an epic guess. Yes, that's an inside joke for the F and B listeners. All right, question three.
Coronavirus time. Inside.
I don't want to just do baseball this week, so we had to break out some other sports. And are you ready for question
I
three?
am ready.
What golfer won the PGA Tour Champions event this week in his debut?
Champions
So that's the senior golf
I was
tour.
just going to say that's code for old guys now.
Yeah, that's the code for old guys. Yes,
His
I,
debut.
I had that in parentheses and didn't say it out loud.
All right, I heard your parentheses there. Uh, I think it would help me to know how old you have to be to qualify for the Champions event.
I'm sure it would.
I'm going to guess it's around 50, and that's not going to help me a lot because I really don't know how old golfers are uh,
In golf years,
in
yes.
golf years, not to mention dog years. Um, I will. Is his debut? Who's going to be
Do you want to
about the
know
same
the age
age as
requirement, or
you
do you want to
and
try
me,
it without?
but slightly younger? I feel like Ernie Els has to be a bit older than we are. That's the first name that. Well, the first name that came to my head is Tiger Woods, but I don't. I can't imagine him actually uh, playing in an over 50 tournament at this point in his career. He feels like he's still, even if he is over 50, he's probably got enough game left. So, for those of you scoring at home, I don't follow golf a lot. This is one of those you're going to probably have to do some research on. The second name I thought of, and I feel like he's probably well over 50, is Ernie Els. And I don't know why I thought of him and not 10 other guys, but I'll go with Ernie.
Ernie Els. I, I won't confirm or deny that Ernie Els is correct, but I sort of had the same reaction you did. Would that be like lowering yourself to play on the senior tour? And then I saw there was a $3 million purse. I'm like, I'll be there. What
Yeah,
time do you what time do you need me? Yes, I'll be.
play for that.
Thank you for the invite.
Go for that.
All right. Question number 4. Another sport you're an expert on, just like all sports. Takuma Sato won what sporting event on August 23rd of this year?
August 23rd, Takuma Sato. Uh, he won
You sure it's a he? I didn't.
hot dog eating contest.
Are you going with Nathan's or just the unnamed hot dog eating contest?
I don't need to give a sponsorship to anybody on this show.
We're certainly not
This
getting
was
paid
mine,
for it. Hot dog eating contest for Takuma Sato.
not to be confused with Takuma Matata.
Right. That's a totally different person from, well, not a person, but totally different thing from a movie. And question number 5 will deal with a little movie trivia.
How about that for a segue?
How about that for an actual unplanned segue? But it's a sports movie, I would say, and that's the movie Draft Day,
Okay.
which was in 2014, and one of the fictional players was someone by the name of Vontae Mack, and I would like to know what actor played Vontae Mack in the movie Draft Day.
Well, I can only imagine you're asking for maybe a very sad reason, and that is Chad Bozman, because his name was in the news today for passing away at the age of 41 or 42 from cancer. So, um, knowing what I know about you, how you like to do things that are current or this day or whatever, I'm going to go with Chad Bozman.
Chad Bozman, who I know Chad Bozman played Jackie Robinson, and for getting this question correct, you're hoping he also portrayed Vontae Mack
And Black Panther. So,
and Black Panther. Yes, so I did see he passed away yesterday, and with the name similar to Bozman, maybe I took that into consideration when designing question number 5. But we will now move on to question 6, which is the final question. And again, if you're trying to play along and get all these right, you can trust Dave's answers or edit them if you feel you need to, and get those responses in by email to flickbaz@gmail.com. Flickbaz, all one word. Or you could you could answer here on the YouTube site if you're listening to us on YouTube, or you could go to Twitter at flickbaz, all one word again.
are you saying I'm on Twitter and I don't even know it?
You're on Twitter and didn't even know it. Yes.
Wow. I always
If
know it's a
if
twit.
anyone out there is cursing Dave for any of his Twitter answers or responses, it's unjustified, as they all came from my brain. So sure, I've said some silly things, but I haven't said much because I barely know how to use Twitter. But yes, yes, you're on Twitter and didn't even know it.
All right. Hit me.
Question 6. As of August 28th, I want to know what player has the most points, not an average amount, but the most points in the NBA playoffs.
Uh, I will say Damon Lillard, whatever you pronounce his name, because he scored a million points in those back to back.
Damian Lillard from the Trail Blazers.
I just want to put in an extra I where there is one.
Yeah, I may have just done it, but you have him as your. And remember the question: if you're answering question 6, it's not average. I just wanted raw points through August 28th for the NBA playoffs. So once again, here were the questions: Who has the most career regular season home runs against Jacob DeGrom? And the Bozman said Freddie Freeman. On this date in 1985, what Yankee passed Minnie Minoso for the most times being hit by a pitch in the American League? And Dave said Don Baylor. As to what golfer won his debut event on the PGA Champions uh, Tour? I guess it's called a tour. I didn't write tour down, but you said Ernie Els. And then Takuma Sato won what sporting event on August 23rd of this year? And the Bosman went with the hot dog eating contest. Question 5 was who portrayed Vontae Mack in the 2014 sports movie Draft Day? And Dave said Chad Bozman. And the last question was the one we just dealt with. Who has the most points in the NBA playoffs as of August 28th? And Dave said Damian Lillard. So if you like all of Dave's answers, you can go with those, or you can make some corrections and get them in as soon as possible. Might as well talk about our Game 7 bracket if you're up for it, Dave.
Yeah, bring it on. Let's get down to the next round here.
Well, yeah, we're finishing up the round of 16. When we're done today, we will be down to the top 8 game 7s in sports history, at least recent sports history. I think our oldest event was 1960. Um, but we'll look at today's events, and we've tallied the votes that I made, that our emailers made, that our Twitter followers made, and that our experts made. Tim and Kevin being our experts throughout this process, and for 2 of the 4 votes today, I barely even need to talk to Dave because they've been decided. But for 2 of the 4, whatever he says goes because our experts and our listeners and are split on things. So, do you want to start in the East bracket or the West, there, Dave?
Uh, let's start in the East.
And we'll start in the East, and we had 8 ranked games in the East, and then it got knocked down to the 4 events that had seedings 1, 2, 4, and 6. So 1 took on 4. We'll handle that one first, and they're both from the year 2016. We have the NBA Finals, which were the Cavaliers against the Warriors, and we have the World Series, which was the Cubs against the Indians. Take it away, Dave.
And strangely, both series involving a team from Cleveland. So, looking at the NBA finals first, with all these games are all these matchups we've talked about before, but a couple of things that I noticed in a little bit more research. Um, the Warriors won the first 2 games. Cleveland won game 3. Warriors won game 4, and then Cleveland won the last 3. So that was highly unusual. You had in game 5, uh, Green was suspended for that game for a foul that was committed in game 4, and then after the game was changed to a flagrant foul and suspended him, and he ended up missing game 5. Also, Andrew Bogut went down with a knee, as some announcers like to say. I think he had 2 knees, but one of them was went down
One of them not functioning so well.
and then missed the rest of the series. And that was also a key. So the Cavs win game 5, 112-97. They win game 6, 115 to 101. Uh, and in both of those games, LeBron was crazy on fire. In game 6, he scored 41 with 11 assists, 8 rebounds, 4 steals, 3 blocks, and 1 turnover. 1 turnover. That's
It's
that's
damn amazing.
at the end of game 6, Phil. Both teams had scored exactly 610 points.
I remember why. I think for some reason that year I only watched games 6 and 7, and I remember ESPN or ABC, whoever was showing it, putting that up, and I'm like, wow, that's just nuts.
And then in Game 7, with what, less than 2 minutes left, I forget the exact time. It's 89-89,
Yeah, a
and
low scoring game. Yeah, that game seven was low scoring.
yeah, the one really low scoring game, relatively speaking. And Iguodala is going in for the layup, and that's when the block happened, and LeBron comes in from behind and just swats it against the backboard. They get a basket, they get another one, and run out the clock. Back and forth. That was an amazing series. Um, it was LeBron's uh, sixth straight NBA Finals, um, which made him that's the most that any individual had since Bill Russell's Celtics. Um, so uh, a lot of uh, legendary, amazing, super talented, probably Hall of Fame players in the series. On the Warrior side, it was their 73 win season. We talked about
Yes.
that. It was the one series they lost, NBA Finals they lost in the four in a row that they were there. Um, you know, this is a crazy series, but this is not quite the same as, to me, the thing that makes the 2016 World Series uh, have the edge is the number of years, the time since those teams had last won. The Indians have last won still to this day, in 1948. The Cubs since 1908, and as they say, anyone can have a bad century. Uh, and they finally got off the schneid here in 2016. They also were down 3 games to 1, and it was 6-6 after 9. Uh, and the Indians had tied it up in the eighth with Joe Madden bringing in Chapman again.
Who can ever get runs off Chapman? That never happens.
That never happens. But he had pitched 42 pitches in Game 5. They brought him out. Madden brought him in again in Game 6 in what was a laugher. I think that one was 9-3. I didn't write that one down, but I think the Cubs won that one 9-3. And there was no reason for him to pitch that game. Zero reason. And he said it. The fans that watching it saw it, like he just didn't quite have it in game 7. He gives up the three. I think the game tying home run was Rajay Davis,
Yes.
uh, who had, I think, 50 some home runs in his career, and he hits one there, um, and just a amazing moment. What do you say? So it ties up in the eighth. They Chapman gets them 1, 2, 3 in the ninth. We go to the 10th, and before they get to the 10th, there's a rain delay, and I've forgotten this. I don't remember if you remember. There's about a 17-minute rain delay, and the Cubs had called a quick team meeting while the tarp. Well, they I don't know if they put the tarp on the field, but while they were not playing, and said, we're the best team in baseball for a reason. We're going to win this thing. And to a man, they will tell you without that rain delay, they probably lose that game. They go out to the 10th, top of the 10th. Schwarber leads off with a single. They pinch runs for Schwarber with Almoro, who tags up on a fly from first on a fly ball to center field. Tags up from first. That's what an amazing base. The only base running play that I can think of that even compares to that was Daniel Murphy stealing third on a walk. Uh,
Well, the Red Sox steal of second off Mariano comes to mind.
yes, okay, that was but that was just making a good baseball play. This was being totally heads up and
Yeah,
aggressive, like
yeah, the different kind of play. I understand.
different kind of play. Like they had that was to try to start something. This was well, maybe that is kind of similar. I don't know. Murphy's is a little bit different. Those two are more similar than these two. Um, so anyway, they get the runner over to second. Zobrist doubles him in. They intentionally walk Russell. Montero singles him in to make it 8-6, which ended up being key because the Indians got another run in the bottom of the 10th, but they couldn't push the tying run across in the 10th, and the Cubs finally win 108 years later. So for me, that 10th inning, the breakdown of Chapman in the 8th, the rain delay, the heads up base running play, the last inning uh, heroics in the 10th, um, make that one have enough of an edge that when you put on it 108 years of futility for the Cubs, I'm going to pick the Cubs over the Indians.
So
Indians.
you're trying to knock off a number one seed here.
I guess I am. I guess.
I guess you are, and I won't even say that you have because it was decided before your vote, but it was decided in the same direction. So the baseball game 7 wins out over the basketball game 7 here, and Cubs Indians will advance.
I'm a little surprised that wasn't closer. I don't know if maybe everyone just had the same thought process that I did, because that the Cavs Warriors series. I mean, what do you say about that? There's probably going to be like 8 or 10 Hall of Famers from that.
I of the 16 votes in this round, this one may have been the hardest for me. I ended up on Cubs Indians, but I know that Cubs Indians, especially game 7, wasn't a well played game. It was an exciting, dramatic game where the basketball may have been better quality. So I was going quality against tension here, and I gave the edge there to the World Series.
Okay,
But it turned out to be in the point system we're using. It didn't turn out to be that close.
I
Most
got to
of the
think it's the Cubs and 108 years that was the
yeah,
deciding factor. But
I think, and I ended up agreeing with you. But you're going to decide this one. Wherever you go, that's where the that's going to be the one who advances, and that's our Mets as the lower seed here. They won a play-in game, and then they won their first round game against a hockey game, but they'll be taking on another baseball game this time around. But that's 2006 Cards beating the Mets in Game 7, even though there were some great Met plays in that game. But that's taking on the 75 World Series of the Reds and the Red Sox.
all right. Well, I mean, we don't have to go too much into the Mets card. Uh, the Cardinals scored uh, the 2 runs in the top of the ninth. Uh, Beltran gets caught looking at called strike 3, the curveball from Wainwright, who was the rookie they had in the bullpen that year. Obviously, went on to be an all-star pitcher. Um, you had the great play by Andy Chavez. I almost said Timo Perez.
I would have corrected you. I was on top of it.
Yeah, yeah. In this, it was the 6th inning to rob the home run and turn a double play. Uh, but it was 1-1. I think it was 1-1 after 2, and then the Cards get 2 in the top of the ninth. The home run off of Heilman. Um, great game. A lot of drama, particularly the game saving catch in the 6th, and then the home run in the ninth, and the Mets did threaten in the bottom of the ninth. They had runners on, and Beltran couldn't get it done. Uh, to me, though, the Reds and Red Sox, obviously, Game 6 is the one that's memorable and legendary, even for you might even say epic,
I
uh,
might, yeah.
for the Carlton Fisk walk off, just inside the foul pole there. Um, and but Game 7 was great in and of itself. The Reds start out by gifting the Red Sox with 3 runs in the third. I think 2 of them were walked in by Don Gullett. Um, Bill Lee, the spaceman, was pitching well for the Red Sox. Uh, key in that was a double play that was broken up. What would have been a double play by Pete Rose, and what I can only imagine that in today's day and age, he would never have been allowed to do with the new rules, the Chase Utley rules about sliding into second.
Oh
Uh,
God, no way. Yeah.
and and the next batter up, Tony Perez, not Timo Perez, hits a 2-run homer to make it 3-2, and the Reds go on and tie it up, and then get um, the go ahead run in the top of the ninth, uh, and win that one. Their first World Series since 1941, so it'd been 35 years for them. Obviously, kept the Red Sox curse alive for a few more years. Um, so I'm gonna pick the Reds and Red Sox in that one, probably mostly because of Game Six, but Game Seven in and of itself was just as tense and death defying as the Mets Cards, and it was the World Series, not the championship series. So I'm going to go Red Sox.
Yeah, I ended up going the same way, and your vote's going to be enough to take us there. One of our experts, Tim, had a long streak of making the right picks here. That whatever he picked tended to be the one that advanced, but that streak will finally come to an end here, as he went with Cards Mets, probably figuring that both of us as Met fans might want to see that advance further, but since the Mets lost, we'll have them lose now too. But they did win a couple of rounds, but they will go no further in this best Game 7 bracket.
Yeah, I will say, if the Mets win that series, that
We may vote different,
yeah,
and we'd be allowed to.
not for that. I mean, obviously we're biased, but two, Gary Cohen, with God love, he's as I said, the best announcer in the game. Now that Vin's retired, but he made the call on that Chavez catch. Maybe the play in franchise history, thinking that if the Mets win that game,
He's
that
got.
will be it probably would have gone down as right there with Tommy Agee and Ron Swoboda as series saving catches. Um, and it wasn't to be because they couldn't get the deal done.
Well, we got a few minutes to talk about the West. These all being games we've spoke of before, but we got a, 1 versus 5 all baseball matchup, and then we got a 2 versus 6 hockey versus hoops matchup. Where do you want to go first?
Oh, we'll go baseball. We'll go
We'll go
baseball.
baseball. You got the 91 World Series, which was the Twins against the Braves that came down to a 1-0 Game 7. Or you got the 2003 Yanks against the Red Sox.
All right. Well, the '91 World Series, as I was looking at the some of the stats on this and the game the game flow, uh, holds the record for the most innings played in a 7-game World Series. And you have to put that caveat because there were a couple of 9-game World Series back in
Yeah.
the day. So uh, the most innings, games 3, 6, and 7 were all extra innings. Um, game 1, the Twins won 5-2. Game 2, they won 3-2 on a game-winning RBI in the 8th inning. Uh, game 3 went extras. Game 4 uh, was a walk-off for the Braves in a 3-2 win. Game 5 was a laugher for the Braves. Game 6, you had Puckett with his walk-off 11th inning home run. Um, and legend has it that he told, I think it was Chili Davis, um, that he was going to bunt in the 11th inning, and Davis was like, "Hell no, man! Just hit one out and get us out of here."
That works.
It does work. It does work. So, Game 7, 0-0, Smoltz against Jack Morris. And Smoltz was the kid. Jack Morris was the established veteran, and Smoltz said, "Listen, if I had more innings under my belt, I would have argued to stay out there too. But he was not able to. They turned it over to the bullpen. 0-0 in the 10th. There were a couple of opportunities for teams to score. I believe in the eighth inning, the Braves had loaded the bases uh, after a couple of hits, and they walked Justice to load the bases. And Sid Bream, who slid in just ahead of the tag, I believe it was in the NLCS in that year. I may be missing my year on that. Hits into a 3-2-3 double play to end that threat. Um, and then in the bottom of the tenth, um, Gladden leads off with a double, and I had forgotten it was one of those doubles that landed in front of the center fielder and then bounced over his head, uh, as happened from time to time in the Metrodome. Knobloch bunts him over. They walk a couple of guys, and then Gene Larkin with the pinch hit, game-winning, series-winning single to wrap things up. So that's the on the one side of the bracket. On the other side, uh, the Red Sox and Yankees. This is the Yankees. This is the Who's Your Daddy chant against with the Yankees chanting to serenading Pedro Martinez. Um, Inexplicably, Boston up 5-2 after 7.5, and he looked like he was done. He had Pedro had a track record of after he got above 100 pitches, kind of running out of gas. Gives up a double to Jeter, gives up a single to Bernie. Little comes out, leaves him in.
Just to say hi. Hey, how's it going?
Yep. Then gives up the double to Matsui, the double to Posada, and then he comes and gets him, and it's too little, too late.
Yeah,
Wakefield, I think, pitched well in the 10th, but gave up the home run. Was the 11th inning, right?
yeah, he had a scoreless inning, I think, Wakefield, and then
Yeah.
gave it up in the 11th.
So, with the Yankees, I hate to say Yankees Red Sox is East Coast, but Yankees Red Sox does mean something, and this kept the curse of the Bambino alive for just one more year. Uh, and Aaron F. and Boone goes down in Red Sox lore, Yankees lore, as the case may be. Um, I'm going to go with the ALCS. I know this is ALCS against a World Series, but the walk off home run, Pedro Martinez, all Hall of Famers on both sides. I'm going with the Yankees on this one.
Very good argument. Well stated. Your 22%, which is whatever the Bozman votes for, gets 22%, goes to the Yankees Red Sox, and it is not enough.
All right.
You're
One of the things I did read about the '91 World Series is that many people call this the best World Series ever.
no, I don't know. It may be the best game, but I think the home team won every game. There are things about that World Series that I don't love, but just as a game seven, people running in the wrong direction and tagging up when it's not even a fly ball, and just weird things in game seven, but fun weird things and just well pitched. And so for a game seven, I voted for it. Yanks Red Sox, like you said, I think was decided mostly on manager incompetence, and I'll take the. I'll t- I'll take the World Series over the ALCS, and that was enough to advance.
That's fair enough. I would definitely argue, the Metrodome was just one of those quirky ballparks that clearly
Yes,
gave them an advantage, and that does irk me a little bit. So that kind of played into it a little bit. I think you got that home park double that Gladden hit to lead off the 10th. That's kind of bogus. I don't know.
it,
Whatever.
it was not even unanimous with our emailers, but they were slightly in favor of the World Series as well. So that moves on. Maybe it will go no further because it will have to run into the winner of this matchup, and that's the sixth seed in this West bracket, the 91 Eastern Finals of the NBA, where the Celtics were able to squeak by the 76ers, and that will go up against an overtime game seven in hockey from just last year with the Sharks against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, and the one thing that makes the hockey to have kind of an uphill battle on this one is that was what the second round.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it was
It's
a
an
three
expansion
against a
team
four
as well.
seed or a two against a three seed, something like that.
Expansion team as well. It's hard to look at that when I know. Listen, we went through it last time with the three straight uh, uh, power play goals and Fleury for Vegas was standing on his head for most of the game, making just epic saves, tremendous saves. There, I did it again. Tremendous saves uh, through most of the game, and just played out of his head. And then the 5 minute major, and they score 6 seconds in, they score another minute in, they score a couple minutes later, and then they score uh, with 30 seconds left in it. So they get 4 goals, 4 power play goals. Uh, Vegas ties it up with the goalie pulled with in the final minute, and then in the first overtime it goes back and forth. So, and by the way, Game 6 was a double overtime game in that series too. So it was definitely belongs in the conversation. I'm not going to say it doesn't belong, but when you think about compared to Irving and Bird and the Sixers and the Celtics, the '81 Eastern Conference Finals, 5 of the 7 games were decided by 2 points or less. And again, the Hall of Famers on both sides.
Good
Ir-
coaching too.
yeah, absolutely, and Bird McHale and Parrish and down the line. You got to go with the basketball in this one.
And in a close one, I went with the basketball as well, just because I knew the series better. And reading about that hockey series, some people call it the greatest hockey game ever, and I didn't remember it that well, and it's only a year ago, and I knew it happened, and I think I voted for it in an earlier matchup with that it won its first round against one of our play-in baseball games, but I still remember some things about those Celtics 76ers rivalries of the early 80s. So I went with hoops as well. And so did Tim. And having one expert support both of us was enough to move it forward. Not unanimous. Some of the emailers went for the hockey, but the basketball will advance. So all. All spots for our final 8 have been filled, and they'll be available if you want to check them out on YouTube. And when we have our next round of votes, you can participate either by email or on Twitter. And we should probably wrap it up there, Dave. And the Yanks and Mets are about to take off the tarp. I'm not sure who's home. I know where the game is, but that's a story for another time. But it was great doing the show, and have a great weekend, Dave.
All right.
All right. Until next time, see you on the Flick and the Bozman Show.